Hello, and hello everybody. Welcome back for another episode, If Not Now Wen. I am so excited to welcome our next speaker, Christian Drapeau, to the show. Christian, he is a stem cell scientist, a creator and author. He had lectured over 50 countries on stem cell research. He's well known by scientists, physician, and biohacker community as an expert in his field. Today, he is a scientific advisor to many companies, as well as the CEO and founder of Kalyagen, where he developed the most potent stem cell mobilizer. With that, my friends, please join me to welcome Christian to the show. Welcome, Christian. What an honor to have you here with us. So tell us a little bit about you, Christian. How do you grow up?
I'm born in Montreal, which is Quebec, Canada. And I grew up there, and I moved out of Canada in 1995. So I've been here for almost 30 years.
What inspired you to leave?
I mean, nothing inspired me to leave. Like, it was not a decision to leave as much as I was... Well, if I go back a little bit behind, I studied neurophysiology at McGill University. So I was doing research in memory, epilepsy. And at the same time, around that time, I started to be also very interested into Buddhism, yoga, all of these approaches. And then I started to dive also into the science of reincarnation. And when it became very clear to me that reincarnation, past lives, is not just an idea, it's not just a belief, but it's a reality of our existence, the idea of doing research in memory in a brain, when we can have memory of past life while the brain has been eaten by the worms a long time ago, it really told me that memory was not in the brain. So it kind of created this whole quest that made me really, I would say, lose interest in my study in neurophysiology. And a few things happened. I mean, we can go into details of those events, but the main outcome of it is that at some point I just dropped out of my PhD. I wrapped up all my PhD into a master's, and I went to live in a monastery in the south of France because my quest was really to understand the mind. And at some point I realized neurology, neurophysiology does not allow us to really understand the mind.
And what do you find out about the mind when you live in the south of France?
That would be by itself a long discussion, but the mind is... if we dive into this, the mind is sort of a, how could I say? Reality is reality. We look at it, we make an opinion out of it, out of whatever knowledge that we already have. So, and that bubble of knowledge that we keep in our mind is never reality. It's always the bubble that we interact with in our mind. If I put in front of you a rose, you don't see that rose. You see all the roses that you have seen in the past, and you put on that rose everything that you know of other roses, but there's no relationship with that rose. So in a way, to me, the discovery of the mind was to basically see and realize that if you really want to be there with reality, you need to kind of stop using the mind and silence the mind and calm the mind. But that's the work in the monastery, very different from putting electrodes into neurons to understand how the brain works.
That's a big courage to say, hey, this is path I'm pursuing for the last XYZ years. What I thought it was my dream. You know what? Darn it. No, let's wrap it up. Let's move on to a different path. That's quite a big courage.
I mean, honestly, for me, it was not courage. It was just, I guess I've always been like this. I'm pursuing truth. And if it leads me in a direction, then it's more difficult for me to continue the path that I'm in.
How do you define truth?
Exactly. It's the pursuit of it that matters. It's not finding it, because everybody will find it differently. It doesn't matter where you get. What matters is pursuing it honestly. And for me, it was more difficult to continue to do the work that I was doing. So I left, and And I came back from that monastery a little bit later with no degree to
How
really
many you
continue.
stay in the...
I was there for about 6 months.
Wow.
And then after that, my master's was rejected, mostly because it was too much for a master. I mean, I had literally almost a PhD wrapped up into that master. So I had to come back. I removed about 2/3 of it. I made it something super simple, about one simple project that I was involved with. And that one worked. And then after that, not having a real diploma to continue the kind of research that I would have been interested in. At some point, I started to work on a blue-green algae. And then I was hired by the company that was selling that blue-green algae in Klamath Falls, Oregon. And they hired me to be their director of R&D. So that's really what triggered my move from Canada to America.
Okay.
Otherwise, before them asking me to go to America, never crossed my mind that I would end up in America.
Okay, so you spent 6 months in the monastery to understand how to silence the mind. And then that led you to R&D and other paths which will unfold in a moment. Can you use 1 or 2 sentences to describe how to silence the mind?
How to silence the mind? Many people say you cannot silence the mind, and it is true. You cannot silence the mind if your attempt is to silence the mind. You can reach mental silence if you put your attention elsewhere. So if you put your
That's
attention...
why people use mantra.
You can use mantra, you can use many things, but you cannot utilize the mind. And that's how you silence it. You need to use something else than the mind. And when the mind gets unused, then it slowly fades. And then you can reach mental silence. So trying to silence the mind does not work. So it is really, honestly, the path is really to sit down and try to have a completely still sitting position and try to find who are you behind the mind? Because the thought, you understand, for me, the best way to summarize it is, I'm sure you've heard about near-death experience. So the body is dead. The brain is flatline. There's no thought process happening into this flatline brain, but the person goes somewhere, comes back, tells a story about what they have experienced. They have had, for the most part, I would say almost without an exception, they come back saying that they gained a greater understanding of who they are. They had a deep sense of identity. They had a better understanding of their existence. They come back, they have lost a lot of the anxiety that they had because they realized that life that they thought was so important is actually not that relevant in the big picture of their, I would say, post-life existence or immortality, whatever you want to say it. So my point is that all of that experience happened when the brain was flatline. So the first step in silencing the mind is to understand that the mind is not relevant. It's not necessary. It's not you. It's not your identity. And to realize that the mind is actually never going to tell you the truth. The mind will only tell you bits and pieces that you have learned about a topic, but it's never going to tell you the truth. So there's a point we need to reach that understanding that the mind is just a poor tool to give us an assessment of reality. And we can get a much greater assessment of reality when we put the mind aside and just get now one with the situation. So when we start to understand that mind is not giving us the truth, that's the first step to be able to drop it. Otherwise, it never stops. And we trust it. The mind comes up with an idea, and the first reaction is, where's that going? What's the outcome of that thought process? That thought process is telling me the truth. I start to think about something, whatever the mind, wherever it's going to lead me, is relevant. And we need to finally realize that, no, it's not relevant. Look at all the thoughts that you've had, like last Monday. What were you thinking about last Monday?
I can't tell you.
You can't tell. But just like today, you thought all day long.
Yeah.
All kinds of thoughts that are completely irrelevant today. And our life is consumed by these useless thoughts that completely occupies our mind all the time. And the point is to realize that it doesn't bring anything. Nothing will bring something to your life as silencing the mind and being there with what is. So anyway, it's a long answer to your question, but
speak like a true scientist.
There you go. I mean, it's funny because it's true. You know, I remember not long ago, I was talking to somebody, I'm telling them, you know, I'm a scientist. And along the discussion, she says, but you're not a scientist. And the reality is that I think that I'm really sort of what is the true scientist, which is not limiting exploration by preconceived beliefs or dogmas, but really like follow where the information is leading you. And to me, it's unavoidable. If we really search the big question of who am I, what is this thought process, what is the mind? We are whatever you exist beyond death. Find that and it will already be a great answer.
Okay, I don't think I understand that.
Okay, what I just talked about, the near-death experience.
Yeah, but we don't have that.
Whomever we are, you don't become something after you pass. When the person experiences brain, like flatline the brain, whatever we experience at that point was not born when the body passed. So who is that identity that is already there in you, but we don't communicate with it because we believe that we are this body, this identity. When I say what is Wen is the person who lived in China, left her village, she did all kinds of things. But honestly, if you were born somewhere else and you didn't have that experience, you would still be the person that you are, different with different experience, but the deep I would still be there. We would still be there. So who is that I?
For you?
It's something that you discover when you de-identify with the body and the story, and you discover that. And honestly, what it is, I don't know if it's something that you can really share. It's something that you discover. You discover it, and when you discover it, I would say, how you can experience it, you're less and less personal. You're less and less that story that you've spent so much energy make for other people. And you relate less and less to other people's story, and you connect more and more with who they are. I mean, I'm sure you've heard that expression, we're all one. Oneness. It is a true reality. But as long as I see myself separated from you, it's just an idea. How do we experience it? We experience it by de-identifying us with what is the separated being, which is me, my personality, my story, my name, and getting closer to what is the deep me, which is the same as the deep you. That's the beauty of the story.
Wow, that is
but
very
it started
enlightening.
Brain research.
I love it. I was not expecting that, but so beautifully said and explained. And I think it's incredibly well said. I think we're all entrepreneurs and pursuing that quest, whatever that look like for you, whether it's a scientific discovery, whether it's this AI technology, whether this is healthcare revolution. I think that quest is at the end is all not just about the thing itself, it's about who we are becoming along the way. And the ability to answer who we are in a deeper level will shed us a light, become a north post and help us navigate that beautiful journey called life. So beautiful said. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amazing. So you spent 6 months in France finding the deeper of yourself, and now you come back to the United States starting R&D. And at that moment, what leads you next, Christian?
Well, it's important first to say that I did not reach the understanding that I have today by spending 6 months in a monastery 30 years ago.
That's a lifetime quest.
There you go. But it started there. But I was a scientist and I was looking for, I wouldn't say looking for a career, but looking for something to do. What am I going to do with this degree that I have, this experience that I have in science? And through a set of circumstances that, quite frankly, is really hard to explain. When I returned, so this is Christmas 1994. So I returned to this monastery in France, and the leader of that monastery tells me, "Okay, I'm going to send you to America." I had no idea America was just not a thing for me. I'm sending you to America. He said, "You'll travel a lot. And he looks at me and he says, "A lot." And I have 3 million air miles today of lecturing all over the world on that topic.
Yes.
But about something like 3-4 weeks after coming back, I got a call from that company in America, and they were asking me if I wanted to become their director of R&D. And it was never a thing for me. And so I started to slowly pivot in my mind. And obviously, it didn't take me a long time to say yes. And it was a surprising event because they never asked me for my degree. They never asked me for anything. They just saw how I was lecturing about their product, how I was talking about science, and they just hired me. I never had one conversation with them about what they wanted me to do in their company. I came in, they gave me a budget, and I developed the whole R&D department for that company, and I started to do research. And the product they were selling was blue-green algae from Klamath Lake. So this is in Klamath Falls, Oregon, and that's how I started to do the research on how this plant was supporting various aspects of human health. So we very quickly identified its effect on inflammation, on the immune system, on the mind. Most people were reporting an increase in concentration, mental clarity, even to the point of being antidepressant. But as I'm doing all this work, I come across people who reversed multiple sclerosis, heart disease, diabetes, emphysema, Parkinson, Alzheimer's, liver failure. And at the point, not only those cases were by themselves impressive, but from a scientific standpoint, how do you explain that a plant is having an effect on the heart, on the liver, on the pancreas, on the brain, on the lungs, on the skin, on joints? So we had no understanding. So I did a number of studies until about 2001 when I came across, so I moved there in 1995. And in 2001, I came across an article. The title was Turning Blood into Brain. So we need to go back in 2001. Stem cells are only precursors to blood cells. That's all they do. They don't become anything else. And here's a study showing that the stem cells went from the bone marrow to the brain and became a brain cell. I thought it was groundbreaking. So I went into the literature to find what else I could find. I found an article about stem cells going to the liver and becoming liver cells, others going to the brain, to the heart and becoming heart cells. So my thought was, if stem cells can become heart, brain, and liver, why not lung, skin, pancreas, and the rest? Makes no sense that it's just those three. And if they do become all these cells, then it has to be the repair system of the body. So we published an article in a journal, Medical Hypotheses. So you see, when I was saying about not following dogmas, all of this was pure hypotheses and fairly far-fetched at the time. But the data available indicated clearly stem cells are the repair system of the body. So we published that. And in the back of my mind, what if that plant is working by stimulating the release of stem cells from the bone marrow? But nobody has ever looked at this because it was not a thing. So we bought the equipment to count stem cells, and we started to count stem cells in our own blood. Very quickly, we discovered that this plant was acting as a stem cell releaser. And then everything for me changed or turned around and went into the field of stem cell research, which is what I've been done now for 23 years.
Wow, you are certainly one passionate scientist for sure. Why are you so intrigued by the topic?
Well, I would say why that part of my work, how could I say, triggered so much passion for me. It's simply that, so we are having this concept. Stem cells, it looks like stem cells are the repair system of the body. I'm having a plant extract that puts more stem cells in circulation. So it looks like we may have something that is fairly interesting for overall health. So, but I don't know, it's just hypotheses. So we made about 200 bottles of that product. I shipped them to a colleague of mine in France. And he was a health practitioner who was seeing a lot of people who were sent to him because their doctor said, there's nothing that I can do for you. So it was sort of last resort. And so I told him, give the product to your people and just let me know what you see. And we had cases of people with severe emphysema on oxygen tank, like many hours in a day. And after 2-3 months, they were virtually normal. We had cases of spinal myopathy reversing. We had cases of heart disease reversing. We had cases that were so impressive that when I looked at that, I really thought to myself, but I really thought what dawned on me is that that's it. We're putting an end to disease. And that thought really is what has pushed me over the years. The system is strong. I mean, it's hard to bring these new ideas, on the marketplace. I remember, Einstein, who was saying something like it will take a generation or two before a new discovery is accepted because the people of that generation, they're so deep in the dogma that they don't accept it. And honestly, this has been my experience.
What is the hardest thing for you in that process of allowing people to see the truth?
I mean, the hardest thing really has been not the rejection of it, because quite frankly, the science is so strong. I have never, ever doubted, what the data, that stem cells are the repair system. It's so strong. It's just that most scientists, until very recently, most doctors, until very recently, are taught in college that stem cells are precursors to blood cells. And if they become cells of other tissues, it's kind of an exception. It's a fluke. It's like a little thing that may happen, but that your stem cells are actually your repair system, and the depth of the understanding of that reality in the body. I don't think that this is taught even today as we speak to new med students. So it's how can you go through med school not being told something like this, and then you go out and you hear that from a lecture from somebody who doesn't have a PhD. It's hard for it to penetrate. It's just a matter of time. It will. So the idea for me right now is, with the product that I have developed, STEMREGEN, as we work with it within the medical community, and as more and more doctors are using it, more and more doctors see the impact that this could have in one's health to release their own stem cells, then they document their cases, and slowly it is getting more and more accepted because people can witness it, experience it, and see it. So right now, that's the path that is leading to the greatest sort of acceptance and understanding of this whole process.
I'm curious for folks who are listening who maybe not as deep and understanding all the topic, who might curious about this. Where can they get started?
I mean, I wrote a book, if they like reading. I wrote a book called Cracking the Stem Cell Code.
Yeah.
And it was written in 2010, so it's not a recent book, but it's still completely relevant today. And it's to understand, in a nutshell, for most people, when we say stem cells, it's something that you go somewhere and you get a treatment. You go to a clinic, it's a one-time event. We take stem cells from a source. It can be umbilical cord, but it can also be your own stem cells from your bone marrow, your blood, your fat tissue.
Is it better or worse?
We can come back to that, okay, in a second. But the general thought is that in people's mind, it's a treatment. And my question here is that if your stem cells have such regenerative potential that I take them from your bone marrow and I put them back into your blood, and that is a significant treatment that can have a huge impact on your health, then they're already in your bone marrow. You already release them every day.
We are?
You are.
Everybody?
Everybody releases them every day. If you did not, you would not be alive today. So the question to me was, since the early beginning, is what is the natural role of stem cells in the body? And it is our repair system. Anytime you have an injury of any kind whatsoever, your body will release stem cells, will guide them to that area, just like it does with the immune system. When you have an inflammation, stem cells will go to a place where you need tissue repair, and stem cells will repair. They are literally your repair system. You are born with red marrow that converts into yellow marrow, fatty marrow that does not make stem cells. By age 30, you have lost 90% of your red marrow.
Oh, no.
And that is why in your 30s, you discover you're no longer Wonder Woman. It's because you no longer have enough stem cells to have the superpower that you had when you were a kid, which is you get an injury, who cares?
Who cares?
2 weeks later, it's gone. It's your stem cells.
And I'm curious, wow, thank you for letting me know. I'm slightly sad, but thank you for telling us there's hope. What is your daily regime or ritual?
My daily ritual?
Yeah. Encompass of all the knowledge for you.
Well, for me, a daily ritual is to get up and to do everything that we've talked about before, which is to silence the mind. And
so you meditate?
Go every day.
For how many?
It depends how much time I have. I believe that short meditation are probably more powerful than deep ones, but I love deep ones.
Define a short 10 minutes?
20 minutes.
Oh, okay. With music, without music?
With or without, but without words, that's for sure.
Oh.
So no distraction. So if I use music, it will be binaural beats.
Yeah. You don't do guided music?
I never do guided meditation. For me, they disrupt me more. They disturb the meditation more because when you use word, you use the mind. So you cannot drop the mind if you follow words.
Very interesting.
So it's a trap. So I'm not saying it's useless. It can bring you so far, but there's a point where you have to drop all guidance in it and just stop and not follow the thoughts and find what is behind all this movement of thoughts. And the more relationship you develop with this deeper reality, the more during the rest of the day you're with whatever comes and not with, because if you look about it, if we dive back into this process of meditation, there is a discovery that everybody is bound to do if they do the work that we've been talking about, which is when a thought comes and you observe that thought, if you can observe it without playing with it, without dancing with it, without doing anything with it, don't react to it, don't judge it, don't appreciate it, don't dislike it, just you look at it for what it is, and you sit with it and you hold it, you will discover invariably that all thoughts are generated by fear. Fear is the basis of everything. You're afraid that you're going to lose something that you have. You're afraid that something that you want, you won't have it. You're afraid that that who you are might be discovered. You're afraid that you may have an argument that you may lose with somebody. So now, how am I going to prepare for that argument? And it's like it's nonstop. Fear is at the bottom of all of them. The moment that you understand that you are an eternal being, and it's the fear of death that is at the root cause of all of this. The moment you lose that fear, then you can really dive deep into mental silence and be there with whatever that comes. So that process it can happen in a second, but obviously for most people, it takes a long time to slowly dive deeper into it. So, but if you do this every day, it's almost like if every day you erase, you fade some of that effect of fear on us, and it makes you live the day very differently. So for me, that's the start of the day. Mm-hmm. The rest of the day, honestly, is whatever the day brings to me. Obviously, I have scheduled, like we're here, we came at a scheduled time, so I have a lot of those during a day. But
what about the health practices?
My health practices,
about the stem cell, all that.
If you want to sit comfortably, to be still, oftentimes you need to release some tensions in the body. So yogic postures will help oftentimes to just be more flexible. So I will do some of that if needed. Once that is done, in terms of my health practice, I am not that fanatics about that. I will take all the supplements that my wife puts in front of me, and I will take that, and that's pretty much all that I will do in that day. For me, it has so much more to do about, let me put it this way. I've reached a place where, for me, the importance of this presence is really the I that stands behind all of that. The body is not that relevant. You're not it anyway. You lose it one day. It doesn't matter that much. Let's have it as healthy as we can so that we can continue that quest without being bothered by the body. Because the moment that you have a disease, you get completely obsessed by getting rid of it.
And that's not good, right?
No, I mean, if you can go beyond it, then okay. But oftentimes you get like your entire life revolved around the issue that you've developed. So for me, in the whole world of health, wellness, biohacking, stem cells, for me, the meaning is give the body as much health as it can have for as long as you can have, so that you are as free as possible to really discover who you are and realize who you are.
That's
and
so
realize
beautiful.
your dreams. Let's put it that way. But health as an outcome, let me put it this way. I would prefer to die at 70 years old, having fully realized who I am and be able to be dead to this body while being conscious of it, rather than living 150 years and not realizing this outcome, this reality. So length of life for me is not that relevant.
Wow. And that was the most beautiful definition I heard about health. So thank you for enlightening us. But you also a business owner. You lead this incredible practice in business about the stem cell and the product of your own. Do you intake it yourself?
Of course. I take it every day. I've been taking it every day since the first day that we discovered what this product was doing. So since 2001, I've been consuming these plant extract with the understanding that stem cells repair. But as scientists, I've studied how stem cells repair in the body. What's the mechanism of action? How they do it? Something was also discovered is that when there's nothing to repair in the background, they play an essential role for our survival, which is to replace the cells that are being lost. And here, to understand what that means, let me put it this way. If you are, let's say, 40 years old, you don't have a 40-year-old liver. You don't have a 40-year-old heart. You don't have a 40-year-old brain, 40-year-old pancreas, 40-year-old lungs. Everything in your body is constantly in the process of tissue turnover. You've heard these things before, like you have a new body every year, every 7 years. None of those statements are true. Like you don't have a new body every 7 years, but you have a new lining in the intestine every 5 days. You have a new skin every month. You have a new liver every 2-3 years. You have a new pancreas every 4 to 6 years. You have a new lung 4 to 6 years. Half of a new heart every 25 years. Everything, every organs and tissue will have this turnover rate with a different time frame, but everything is in turnover. Turnover means one specific thing, is that you lose cells every day, and you need cells to replace what is lost. Otherwise, if you have a new liver every 2-3 years, that means you would not live beyond 3 years old if you didn't have the cells to replace. That's your stem cells. But if you lose 90% of your stem cells by age 30, you very quickly see that this process of tissue turnover loses balance. There's a point where you don't have enough cells to offset cellular loss. That's aging. Then you start to enter into the process of aging, and down the road, it will lead to some form of age-related disease. So I propose this understanding of disease formation based on stem cells about 10 years ago in the scientific literature. And I was saying, one way to prove if this is true, let's go and count the number of stem cells in the bloodstream of people who have developed various age-related problems. They should have, on average, fewer stem cells than you find in healthy people.
In the same age?
Of the same age.
Okay.
And right now, there's about 50 or so of these studies. So diabetes, erectile dysfunction, atherosclerosis, heart disease, emphysema, Parkinson, lupus, arthritis, liver failure, kidney failure. I mean, the list keeps growing. All these people have less than 50% of the stem cells that you find in a healthy person of the same age.
Why is that? If they are same age?
Because we don't have all the same physiology. We
eat differently.
The red marrow converts into yellow marrow at a different rate. I assume there's not enough research on it.
Everyone's different.
The point is that we're all different, and the number of stem cells that we have as a 40 or 50-year-old differs from somebody else. The people who at 60 repair still rapidly, they're still vibrant, they're still healthy, I guarantee you, they may do a lot of things for their health, but one core fact is that they have more stem cells in circulation than somebody who does not do as well as they do. Everything is dictated by how many stem cells you have in your bloodstream. Knowing this, I take this product every day to put more stem cells in circulation to make sure that I can replace all the cells that are being lost as I age. So yes, I do this every day.
And that's why I want to ask.
Long answer to a simple question.
No, that's perfect. And, as a stem cell really beginner, I'm going to put myself in that category. Is there a difference of injection of this, of that versus intake? I mean, how do people even thinking about that? That's one. Also, secondly, there are so many studies about, blue zone and those individuals who live like, a very healthy, vibrant life, even in the 80s, 90s, 100s. They don't do fancy supplement. They don't do anything, but really, every different blue zone have its own practice. How do you see that relationship? And
the more we study stem cells, the more it is becoming clear that it is the cornerstone of health. Right now, in this phase of the development of stem cell research, it is looked at as something exceptional. It's a treatment. Like as soon as you find stem cells in a new part of the body, it's almost like a discovery. But I think if we put all these discoveries together, what is really emerging is almost like anything that is good for health seems to tap into stem cells in a positive way. Anything that is bad for health seems to hinder the role of stem cells in the body. Let me give you a few examples. Fasting for more than 3 days, a thing that is done in a lot of these blue zones, will put more stem cells in circulation.
Thank God.
If you have systemic inflammation, you reduce the ability of stem cells to find where to go in the body. In the blue zones, oftentimes they have a lot of food that have a lot of pigments. This is anti-inflammatory. Same thing in terms of antioxidant nutrition. Stress will suppress the ability of stem cells to migrate in the tissue and proliferate. So in blue zones, oftentimes they have a lifestyle that reduces stress. Exercise in these blue zones, oftentimes they live a lifestyle that makes them do exercise every day, whether it's gardening, whether it's doing, so like not intense, small cardio exercise every day has shown that when you do have an injury, you will release more stem cells. Your response will be more effective if you do exercise every day. So my point is that there's a lot of things that they do in their lifestyle.
Naturally.
I'm not saying it's the only thing, but what I'm saying is that if we ask the question of the link between blue zones and stem cells, knowing that they don't necessarily do stem cell therapy, my answer is, who cares? Stem cell therapy is a small part of the whole knowledge about stem cells. They are our repair system. They are our health maintenance system. And there's a lot of things that we know that is good for health that will hinder the role of stem cells. I said stress, smoking cigarette. You literally smoke cigarette and have the smoke go into a filter, or you filter the ambient air and then you put water on this, extract that, put that with stem cells, you suddenly inhibit the ability of stem cells to migrate in tissue and proliferate. As an example, alcohol will do the same thing. So
you don't drink?
It doesn't mean don't drink. It does mean, what it means is that if you drink with excess, then overall, because stem cells work every day. If on one day you do something that don't make your stem cells work well, the day after you can compensate for it.
Yeah.
So my point is that don't do these things over long periods of time.
So almost like you were saying, at those beautiful, blue zone area, their lifestyle or their food, their environment allow them to have the result of more stem cell, therefore more vitality in this result. And am I hear this correctly? That maybe in the Western world, the lifestyle that we had, I wish I've been gardening every day, but I am not. And there's natural whether stress or different things add together, and maybe we are more propelled to have less stem cell in the same age compared to those individuals, and therefore you propose that the supplement is one way to increase the probability of more vitality. Am I hear that correctly?
Yeah, but let me add one little thing to what you said. I think the concept of blue zone is very interesting, but I think that you can be your own blue zone. I don't think you need a blue zone.
What? Okay, please explain, because I feel like, no, tell me.
You can be your own blue zone. You can live your life today. Okay, let's go back to what we talked about before.
Being very specific.
You get up in the morning,
yes,
and you really meditate, and you really develop the clear understanding that we are fear beings. Let me start there. The body that we have today has receptors to feel pain, heat, cold, pressure. You don't have a receptor for trust, for love. The body has evolved as a prey. We respond to danger. If I come in your back and I surprise you, you don't turn away and ready to receive love. No, you're afraid.
Yes.
Fear is the first reaction. Our biology is made to respond. I'm not saying we don't experience love.
Understood.
But you don't experience it through your body.
Yes. Almost like the lower level of the antenna, the way how we experiencing it energetically.
There you go. Find the thing in you that experience love, and you will have learned how to separate yourself from the body. The body does not experience it. Your body is there to sense danger. That's what this body is made for. It's the same as any animal out there that are waiting to be attacked. So my point here is starting to understand the role of fear and separating yourself from that, realizing that it's not helping you in any way in today's world. You don't need it. Already you'll be like a long way toward a blue zone. It's just one thing that we have taken care of. Now start to sleep very well. Go to bed early, get up early. You've already added something that is common in those blue zones. Go and take a walk every day. There's a lot of things that you can do. If you can't garden, there's a lot of places where you can buy very nice local produce.
What about stress?
I mean, stress is fear. If you don't have fear, you don't have stress.
Okay, this is probably a dumb question. How do you eliminate fear? What you said sounds cool theory, but in practice, how the individuals, again, we are speaking to so many entrepreneurs in a very fast lifestyle who are, again, they are wearing 1,000 hats. They are a product manager. They are a top salesperson. They are, you understand, there are multiple different demand on every single day. How do we navigate that and let the fear dropping?
Let me answer by one quote from Saint-Exupéry.
Okay.
He's a French writer. I'm sure his books have been translated in English as well. But in one of his books, he said, fear does not exist because the thing that you fear, the moment you come close to it, fear disappears. Have you ever experienced like the fright of stage, public speaking, for example? The moment you walk on the stage, the fear is completely changed.
That's interesting. Why is that?
Think of anything that you feel.
Yeah.
It's because fear is a mental process of being afraid of what is going to come. When that thing comes, it's never the way that you feared it.
That's so
It's never the way that you feared it. So when you start to really meditate on that and you realize that whatever you fear never materializes the way that you expect it, then you stop spending so much energy fearing it. So that is one step toward like eliminating fear and then welcoming everything that comes. Think about it this way. Of all the things that, let's say you have a meeting that you're anxious about. You have had point of reference like this in your life?
Of course.
Has any one of them happened in the way that you were expecting it to happen?
I think we always would think about the worst scenario.
They never happen the way that you expect them. Never. Never. Always better.
Yeah.
And even if they're worse, your experience through it
It's not as bad as you thought.
is not as bad as you thought, is calmer because you deal with the reality of the moment. Your expectation, negative expectation of it through fear is always worse. So you just stop dwelling into this kinds of mental process. So when you remove that, stress is a lot gone from your life. A lot.
Sounds very magical.
The experience is magical, but the process is really one of killing the belief in you through experience, through meditating on it, killing the belief that what you think is real, what you think is not real, what you think is fear-based.
It's interesting you speak about all the thoughts that stem from fear, all the thoughts, which is really interesting. And just curious, as someone who are, sitting in a listening chair thinking, okay, that's easy to set. When you sit down, right, assume that it's just bare music or there's no music, it's thousands in your mind. And you're sitting there thinking, this is probably not meditate correctly. No. And then you sit there for 45 minutes, an hour thinking, well, gotta go. How do you move past on that moment, which is, I imagine everyone had that experience at one point, to really able to look behind those thoughts, voices, and connect to that true I.
First, we need to understand that the thought process, when I say it's based on fear, it's not something, I can explain it, like I can talk about it, but it's an experience. It's not something like I can explain it until tomorrow. You will never have that. You will never experience what it means until you hold a thought, a second thought, a third thought. And as you go through this process, you realize, oh, be darned, they all come from fear. It's an experience. You have to see it for yourself. Otherwise, it's worthless talking about it.
Understood.
So it's just like I show you the milestone, the outcome. Now you need to walk the path going to that outcome. So we can talk about it, but the most important is the motivation, the inspiration to do it. Otherwise, it's worthless. As an idea, it's worthless.
Fair point.
As you sit to meditate, the thoughts are coming. They never stop. The point, how can I go there? Because it is a challenge, It starts, I believe, with the reflection, thinking for a while, because you need to start from a thought. You cannot start without the thought. So first, use the thought to bring it to its own demise, which means use your thought process to realize how that thought process is actually not helping you, is actually not giving you solutions to. Most of the solutions in your life came without the thought process. The big problem that you were chewing and chewing on, they faded away. The thought process did not resolve them. Thought has never resolved the problem. They faded away. You have a break. You break a relationship. Okay, you're sad. You try to repair it. 2 years later, it